You've probably heard that bitcoins are created using very powerful computers that solve very complicated mathematical equations. You may also have heard that Bitcoin is a network of computers that manage a blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain is the public ledger that is something like the history book of Bitcoin transactions. Every Bitcoin transaction that's ever been made since Bitcoin's existence is written down and documented there. The history is really important because it shows exactly how many Bitcoins each Bitcoin account or address has. Trust in this ledger is what makes Bitcoin work. Remember, with Bitcoin, there's no central authority that can approve this history ledger, which means that anyone can write it. So how can you have a reliable history book that anyone can write and no one approves? Well, that could lead to many different versions of this book, and we might not know which one is correct. Maybe we need some kind of voting system to make sure we can all agree on the correct version of the history book, and to make sure bad people can't profit from it by causing confusion. But voting systems aren't necessarily identifiable and centralized. There must be a central authority that identifies and determines who has the right to vote. Well, that cannot be the case with Bitcoin, because the point is to abolish central authority. So the voting system must allow everyone to participate, but still deter crooks and other evildoers. To achieve this, Bitcoin mining is used. Hello, and welcome once again to Alpha Finance. This is the channel to watch if you want to learn more about personal finance, investing, and cryptocurrency. However, before I get into the topic, do me a favor. Subscribe and hit that like button because it really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks. Alright, now let's get into it. In short, the Bitcoin protocol awards new Bitcoins every time someone adds a new page of transactions to the history book, also known as adding a block to the blockchain. However, you need to invest computing power to do this. What do I mean by computing power and why is it needed? There is a mathematical way to prove that you have taken data, like a page in a history book, and done some calculations with it. This provable computing power costs time and electricity, money. The protocol states that if there are two conflicting versions of the blockchain, the one with the most computing power wins. In other words, the rules are as follows. It costs money to add a new page to the history book. If everyone agrees to add your page to the history book, you get paid for your work. But if they do not agree to add the page, then you just wasted money writing it. This ensures that everyone writing this history book tries hard to agree with each other so as to not waste any money, and keeps crooks away because it's just too expensive to write fake versions that get thrown away anyway. That's essentially what Bitcoin mining is. It may sound like a strange way to solve the problem, but in reality, it makes a whole lot of sense. Miners have to invest money in mining as a kind of security, and they get their money back in Bitcoins if their mining has been good for the network. Since miners are paid in newly issued Bitcoins, this is a kind of cost that all Bitcoin holders must pay in the form of inflation to secure the network and ensure that the history book is accurate. This model actually solves two problems. It decentralizes trust in the ledger so we do not need a central authority, and it allows the protocol to generate and distribute all the Bitcoins it needs fairly, rather than them all going to the inventor. One of the key points of Bitcoin is the way the coins are generated. Again, they're not all created at once by the inventor. That would be unfair. Rather, they're created slowly over time and paid to all those involved in processing blocks of transactions and adding them to the blockchain. The rate and limit of coins created are clearly defined in advance. 50 coins per block of transactions that is added to the blockchain, which takes roughly 10 minutes. This number decreases by half each 210,000 blocks, or roughly 4 years, for a total limit of 21 million coins. This is all very arbitrary. The actual numbers themselves don't matter much, as long as they're agreed upon in advance and level the playing field for everyone. Importantly, the calculations that miners do are self-adjusting to maintain this rate of 1 block per 10 minutes, no matter how many miners there are. You can be forgiven for thinking that miners have all the power in controlling Bitcoin because they're writing the history, but the truth is actually far more nuanced. In reality, every time you use a Bitcoin wallet, you are reading through the entire blockchain and verifying all the information, including the cryptography, computational power, and very importantly, the creation of new Bitcoins. So why does you reading the history books keep miners fair? Well, if anything is out of place or illegitimate, you toss it out and find a version of the blockchain that does follow the rules. This would be devastating for miners because it costs them a lot of money to write that version. This can really explain why miners follow the rules. It's really easy to simply delete their hard work in favor of a miner who didn't break the rules. These rules are known as the protocol, and they work because people agree on them and then check them. And so are the checks and balances in the system known as Bitcoin. Of course, the further you look into these things, the more nuanced and complex the system gets. Now, if you're interested more in the theory and potential problems with the system, there is plenty to read up. And for the big question that many people wonder, should I be mining Bitcoins? Let me just get that simple, short answer out of the way. You probably should not be mining Bitcoins. You see, it is in no way free money or any form of guaranteed profit. But if you're still curious, let's take a look at miners. A miner is a computer of some sort that runs the mining algorithm and is doing the actual mining. But the person who owns the computer is also called a miner. Now, when you hear the word miner, it may mean the computer or the person, or both, depending on the context. So what does a miner do? Well, miners take the transactions that haven't been yet processed and put them together into a block. That's the new page we're adding to the history book. Remember that we said that this requires computing power? The miner has to do some calculations for this block, and these calculations have a difficulty that takes time to complete. Now, this difficulty adjusts itself so that the blocks are completed every 10 minutes on average, but it's pretty random. So a kind of lottery takes place where all miners try to complete these calculations until one of them succeeds. The one who succeeds gets the reward in the form of new coins granted by the protocol. Each time a block of transactions is completed and added to the chain, all miners start working on the next block. Now, the faster your computer is, the more likely you're to solve the calculations first. But keep in mind that you only get a limited number of Bitcoins per block, so it's not worth using all the computers in the world just to solve this problem. In summary, the Bitcoin protocol pays people to invest computing power into the blockchain, but promises no profit. Mining is a zero-sum game, meaning that for every person who made a profit, there's a person who made a loss, regardless of price gains and losses. And so because of the zero-sum game, if you're considering becoming a miner and buying mining equipment, you need to be better than the competition, and that requires a lot of research and resources. Back in the day, when Bitcoin was practically unheard of, there were so few miners that the difficulty was low enough so that these few people can find a block once every 10 minutes on average. And so they used their laptops and desktops to mine for Bitcoins. Nobody did this competitively because Bitcoins were worthless back then. However, as the exchange rate of Bitcoin started to rise, other people realized that they can mine Bitcoins and sell them for profit. More miners joined the party, and the difficulty adjusted itself and made it harder to find blocks. So, as the Bitcoin network gained more mining power, the difficulty grew stronger, and the average time of 10 minutes between finding blocks remained. Every block reward was now worth more, and there were more people competing. So as a miner, you'd find yourself finding fewer and fewer blocks, but each block was worth more and more. So instead of a fixed deal where they got a little bit of money once a day, the miners played a kind of lottery where they got a lot of money as soon as they were lucky enough to find a block. However, some people believe that Bitcoin mining is bad because it's a waste of electricity. These are very complex systems, so I don't claim to know the answer, but consider the following. Non-mining requires the use of systems that rely on central authorities and trust. There are many costs associated with traditional financial services, such as counterparty risk, and all the infrastructure such as real estate, buildings, human services, and of course, the millions of computers that are needed anyway. Now, Bitcoin isn't magic, and it doesn't eliminate these costs. It's simply a different cost for a different system. The cost of mining is the cost of creating such a system without a trusted central authority. And now, you know a little bit more about Bitcoin. Well, that's it from this video. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you got any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, or you want to share with us your mining story, we'd love to hear it. Leave it in the comment section below. With that, we'll see you next time.